dans ma langue maternelle.
I shall speak in my mother tongue first, if I may. Dear President, dear Christophe Lytle, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to extend my regards to you. I'd like to commend your diversity. Eurochambre has 40 to 45 countries and associated countries. I think it's a wonderful opportunity and strength to be able to come together in this parliament of businesses at the very heart of European democracy, which is the European Parliament. I'm not a Brussels technocrat. I'm a politician. And I've been so for a while now. But I haven't forgotten what I have learned in the field, in the region that I presided for around 20 years, a mountainous region in the Savoie, near the Alps, as a minister in my country, or just during my 2 mandates as Commissioner, first in charge of regional policy, and then in charge of a subject that lies at the very heart of your work, of our challenges, of your commitment. I saw it earlier on in a survey, because for 5 years I was in the Internal Market Commissioner and the Commissioner for Financial Services. I haven't forgotten anything from what I learned through this frequent and always constructive contact with businesses, be they big or small, in my different missions. I always have that in mind when I do the mission that I've been entrusted with by President Juncker and the 27 member states, and with the European Parliament in this very complex, extraordinary mission, which is that of separating a big country from our European Union in an orderly fashion. I'm very happy to have been able to accept your invitation to share some beliefs with you and some information on these negotiations. At any rate, to take the floor about this subject together here. It is time, because, as Anne was saying, never in the history of our European Union have we been faced from the inside as well as from the outside, faced with so many challenges and threats sometimes. And so it is the time to meet, to dialogue, to talk to each other, to listen to each other, and for us in Brussels at the European Commission to take account of the points of view and the needs of businesses in all their diversity. You are at the very heart of these challenges and these stakes, also when it comes to European competitiveness, the skills challenge, training, mobility, the integration of people with a migration background, of migrants as well, the young, the search for new markets through agreements that also must benefit SMEs, not only large companies, all the while encouraging sustainable development and to invest together in groundbreaking technologies to deepen our internal market and fine-tune it to the new digital reality. Those are examples of positive projects that tally with the initiatives written in the Juncker plan that the Commission is implementing. On all these subjects, the 27 member states that are going to stay together in the European Union, those member states have to concentrate to build a stronger union, basing themselves on what I believe, ladies and gentlemen, is our main asset, our main capital, our internal market, Einheitsmarkt. And the single market is more than an area of free trade. It was so at the beginning, but it has become much more than that. It is an ecosystem that we've built together. Thanks to the encouragement of your chambers and your professional representatives with standards that are common, certifications, joint rights as well when it comes to consumers, common regulation, joint supervision, and above all, common jurisdiction. That is the single market as it has become, as we have been building it for 20 odd years with the UK as well. And I have worked with Eurochambres and your representatives when I was honoured to be the Commissioner for the Internal Market, for instance, on the simplification of public procurement that needed to be simplified, or finally the creation of a single European patent. Now, it was a positive agenda based on progress for Europe, for European citizens, and all 27 must be devoted to that. Now, since these negotiations on Brexit have commenced, we have talked a lot about this improbable unity of the 27 member states. It is often linked to the personal willingness of each individual leader, that of Mr. Juncker, the European Parliament, but it also linked to the some work that I have started to do, and I'm honoured to do, to listen to everybody, to talk to everybody. These are unprecedented negotiations, and they are unprecedentedly transparent with the 27 member states, with the European Parliament, and I shall uphold this method right until the end, because therein lies the key of the trust of the member states and the European Parliament, and it is that way that I'm going to continue listening in each national capital, not only the Prime Minister Prime Ministers that I see at council meetings, but also trade unions and professional representatives, your organizations in each and every country, because I'm going to continue doing this because it is the key to the unity. It is by setting medium to long-term goals that we're going to face the challenges that Europe is currently experiencing. Among these, obviously, is Brexit, creating a lot of angst, a lot of fear among citizens, UK citizens, for instance, and their status, creating a lot of fear among entrepreneurs and groups that are scared of the uncertainties that Brexit will bring about. Let me give you a state of play of what is going on and what remains to be done in order to reach an agreement for an orderly exit of the UK from the European Union.
On 29th of March next year, which happens to be your birthday, Christophe.
Yeah, you know, I'm surprised.
It's not clearly linked, but I know it's your birthday this day. In less than 6 months, the UK will leave the European Union. We have always respected the UK's sovereign decision to leave the European Union, even if we regret profoundly this vote. But we respect its decision to leave the single market, its decision to leave the customs union. And we are doing our best to reach a deal on the UK's orderly withdrawal. Since the beginning of this negotiation, we had made good progress. In fact, a lot of the withdrawal agreement has been agreed with the UK. And if you look at this paper copy of the draft treaty, 168 articles, 2 or 3 protocols on Gibraltar, Cyprus, and Ireland, more or less 80–85% of the content of this project has been agreed in green with the UK for the moment. However, some difficult issues are being left until the end. We must agree on the governance of the withdrawal agreement and on a very key issue for the agriculture economy, the geographical indications that are currently protected in the 28 EU member states. Above all, we need to agree on how to avoid a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland for many reasons, for political, human, and economic reasons. Ladies and gentlemen, the UK wants to leave and will leave the single market and the customs union. This means that there must be checks on goods traveling between the EU and the UK, and that checks do not exist today. Customs and VAT checks and compliance checks with our standards to protect our consumers, our economic traders, and to protect your businesses. We have agreed with the UK that these checks cannot be performed at the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. A crucial question is therefore where they will take place. The EU is committed to respecting the territorial integrity and constitutional order of the UK, just like the UK has committed to respecting the integrity of our single market, including Ireland, obviously, just to mention the very right words of Fiona Condon a few minutes ago. Therefore, the EU proposes to carry out these checks in the least intrusive way possible. For customs and VAT checks, we propose using the existing customs transit procedures to avoid doing checks at a physical border point. Let me be more specific on this point, because I think that many of your companies are or could be concerned by these future relations. Companies in the rest of the UK would fill in their customs declarations online and in advance when shipping goods to Northern Ireland. The only visible systematic checks between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK would involve scanning the barcodes on the lorries or containers, which could be done on ferries or in transit ports. These arrangements already exist within EU member states, in many of our countries, in particular those with Ireland, for example, between mainland Spain and the Canary Islands. Number two, for regulatory checks on industrial goods, for instance, this could be carried out by market surveillance authorities. Again, this would not need to happen at the border, but directly in the market or at the premises of companies in Northern Ireland. This leaves the health and phytosanitary checks for live animals and products of animal origin. EU rules, our rules are very clear, and I know them quite well as a former agriculture minister in France. Such checks must happen at the border because of food safety and animal health reasons. And obviously, in the future, the island of Ireland will remain and must remain a single epidemiologic area, obviously. But such checks already exist in the port of Larne and Belfast in Northern Ireland. However, they would have to cover 100% rather than 10% of live animals and animals-derived products, which would involve a significant change in terms of scale. President, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, both the EU and the UK exclude having a physical border on the island of Ireland. Therefore, what will arrive into Northern Ireland will also be arriving in our single market. There will be administrative procedures that do not exist today for goods traveling to Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. Our challenge is to make sure those procedures are as easy as possible and not too burdensome, in particular for smaller businesses. I understand why such procedures are politically sensitive, but let me make 3 remarks on this point. First, Brexit was not our choice. It is the choice of the UK. Our proposal tries to help the UK in managing the negative fallout of Brexit in Northern Ireland in a way that respects the territorial integrity of the UK. Second, our proposal limits itself to what is absolutely necessary to avoid a hard border, customs procedures and the respect of the EU standards for products. It does not include measures on free movement of EU citizens, services, healthcare, or social or environmental policy. But the common travel area will continue as today between UK and Ireland. And yet, our proposal gives Northern Ireland benefits that no part of the third country enjoys. In particular, continued access to the single market for goods and continued benefits from the EU free trade agreements. Our proposal also includes the continuation of the island's single electricity market as requested by the UK. Over the past week, we have met the leader of all Northern Irish political parties, many of whom I have met before, and many of whom I will meet again. My door will remain always open. And my team met on Monday a group of Northern Irish businesses leaders and a group representing local government. Naturally, there were questions, doubts, and worries about our proposal and Brexit in general. But most conversations focused on the added value for Northern Ireland so long as we can mitigate the burden of doing checks. Third, our proposal is just a safety net, a backstop. It is needed because the details of the future relationship between UK and EU will only be negotiated after the UK's withdrawal, but the future relation in itself might mitigate the necessary checks or even make some unnecessary. For instance, a veterinary agreement between EU and UK would mean less frequent inspections of live animals. And we are still open to the idea of having a customs union with the UK. Such a customs union would eliminate an important part of custom checks. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the issue of Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is key, the withdrawal agreement will include other important issues on which we already agreed with the UK. And these issues are important, sometimes very important, for your businesses, your employees, and your regions. In particular, we already agreed that European citizens who arrived in the UK before the end of 2020, today more than 3.5 million European citizens living and working in the UK. It would be the same, and the reciprocity was clear for the British citizens living and working in the EU. All the citizens who moved to other EU countries before that date can continue to live their lives as before, who remain in close contact with organizations representing the citizens concerned, most notably to discuss the implementation of the withdrawal agreement. Number two, all financial commitments undertaken by the 28 EU member states will be honored at 28. That means that, for instance, for the European Social Fund or for the cohesion policy, for the regional policy, all current programs will continue with the UK participation until the end of the financial pluriannual period. Number three, the UK will retain all the rights and obligations of a member state for the transition period until the end of 2020 as at its request. And this will leave time for businesses to prepare, and this will leave time also to finalize the future relationship. But to be clear, in front of you, all these points will enter into force on the condition that we agree on the all withdrawal agreement, which must be ratified, I hope at the beginning of next year, one side by the UK and on our side by the EU Parliament. The EU Parliament will have the last word in this negotiation, the first stage of the negotiation for the withdrawal agreement. Mesdames et messieurs, au-delà.
Ladies and gentlemen, beyond a separation that is difficult, as all separations and divorces are, and we wish this to be an orderly one, what is most important in the common interest of our country, in the interest of economic stability and growth, what will be most important is our future partnership with the United Kingdom. We need to define an outline, a framework and parameters of our future relationship with the United Kingdom. And then this future relationship will be subject to fresh negotiations, several types of negotiations, 10 negotiations running in parallel that will commence in April 2019 when the United Kingdom will become a third country. We will start negotiations on the basis of a statement, and we have very little time. We need to conclude the negotiations by the end of 2020, defining the new relationship, the new partnership with the UK. We're working hand in hand with the United Kingdom on this joint political statement that will describe the framework of our future relationship. In March of last year, the heads of state of government, the head of the Council, the head of the European Commission clearly expressed the willingness for there to be a very ambitious partnership with the UK. And this ambition is supported by the European Parliament and by its President Antonio Tajani. In the discussions with the UK, we take account of the positions, the white paper that the Chequers meeting produced. And since July, we've discussed all the chapters with the UK negotiators at technical and political level. That is why this white paper, as I've always said, is useful, because it enables us to have this benchmarking between our proposals for the future and the proposals and the requirements from the UK. And it enables us to find a lot of points of convergence. We found quite a bit in the area of internal security, foreign policy, military defense cooperation. We found a lot of convergence on all the forms of sectoral cooperation in transport and aviation that is relevant to you. We have found convergence when it comes to the participation of the UK in the programme of the EU policies, as well as we do with third countries like Norway, Switzerland, Israel, in research, for instance, where we will use the tools at our disposal for our third country relations. We've also found points of convergence when it comes to our objectives in certain areas where we are prepared to use unilateral tools to better cooperate with the UK, for instance, in the area of financial services or data protection. When it comes to our economic partnership, apart from all these points of convergence that are there and acquired, there are things in the white paper that do not tally with my mandate on the European side. Now, we do agree to base our future relations on the basis of a free trade area without any tariffs or quotas. This is a very important point. But beyond this free trade area without tariffs or quotas, we have 2 points where we don't agree with the UK proposals, because these 2 points run counter to the very foundations of our single market, of your single markets. When it comes to customs, the UK would like to preserve the autonomy of a trade policy to negotiate its own agreements with the US and China, all the while remaining in our customs area. So they will be able to use tariffs that are lower than us at the entrance, all the while remaining in a single market for goods with us, which we believe would create a risk of there being commercial flows going elsewhere to the detriment of our companies. So they want their own external tariffs, all the while collecting European customs duties that would generate a loss of income for us, also VAT income for our member states. We know that the UK, and that's the very reason for the referendum, wants to regain the control of its borders, its policies, its money. We respect that choice, but the UK government, in the same spirit, has to accept that we want to maintain the management and the control of our external borders and our customs borders. Another point where we don't agree, apart from customs duties, is the regulatory framework for goods. The UK has asked to be aligned for a part of our standards on goods so that they can participate in our single market, but only for goods. At the same time, they wish to remain free to opt out of the regulation that have to do with the production factor, be it of services, capital, social standards or environmental standards. So the production factors for these goods. This type of single market system a la carte would be tantamount to giving a huge competitive edge to UK companies with respect to companies operating within the single market. Let me give you 2 examples. The regulatory cost for chemical products that a lot of you use, 31% of the regulatory price for not raw materials, but has to do with complying with product standards that any exporter must comply with to enter into our market, for instance the REACH regulation. But 69% of the regulatory price for chemical products has been provoked or caused by respecting other regulations such as environmental standards, and it is in that part that the UK wants to be able to opt out of. For steel, for instance, the figures are even more telling. Ladies and gentlemen, you're aware of the fact that in some economic sectors where margins are very low, minor divergences on regulations can trigger a comparative advantage that is significant for the UK if it were to remain in the good single market and would diverge from the rest. That is why a lot of companies, also those among Eurochamps, dear President, have asked us across all EU member states to do nothing that would weaken our position when it comes to the internal market. The internal market will represent more than 60% of our trade relations, and the survey that you showed shows how this internal market lies close to your heart. So the indivisibility of the four freedoms, the integrity of the single market, the autonomy of decision of the 27 member states, but also taking into account the red lines that the UK have. It is on that basis that we have offered a partnership that is based on an ambitious FTA, no doubt accompanied with customs cooperation, regulatory cooperation, and also a level playing field that is at the level of such a free trade agreement. That is this partnership that we wish to outline in our joint political statement with the UK, and that will be the floor, the basis of our future economic relations. Nothing will prevent us thereafter to enrich these relations on the basis of negotiations, with the proviso that all principles are respected. I'd like to conclude by mentioning one or two points on the conditions of these negotiations on withdrawal that are still continuing day and night, and we have objectives that have been set by the 27 member states. Agreement is within reach if we have the negotiations on the 17th of October at the next council meeting. That is why we are interested in maximizing an orderly withdrawal and minimizing the cost of withdrawal for your companies. And in the event of a no deal, and I see a lot of comments on this scenario, we know that the costs would be very high for the UK, but also for some economic sectors. That is why the no deal has never been our scenario, even if our responsibility is to be prepared for all options. I want to be very honest with you, even in the event of an agreement, and I am working for an agreement with my team, your companies will have to adjust on account of the UK's choice. It will cannot be business as usual, but to help your companies face these adjustments, the European Commission has published around 70 documents at your disposal, covering all sectors, e-commerce, maritime transport, energy, financial services, etc. And I'd like to thank Eurochambre President for its support in flanking you in this separation. The task force that I am heading is also available for any questions that you might have. I'd like to end on a personal note, ladies and gentlemen, as the person in charge of these negotiations, obviously under the supervision of European leaders and the European Parliament. Let me tell you what I think as someone who, when they voted for the first time in their country in 1972, I was 21, we had a referendum in France at the time on the accession of the UK, the Republic of Ireland, Denmark and Norway. And I voted yes. I actually waged a campaign for yes, even though I was part of the goalless parties at the time. And I've never regretted that, because I think that united we stand strong, and it's better now more than ever before. It's better to be together, 27, to be respected, to defend our values, our interests, and to be at the table who are going to organize the order or disorder of the world in the 30-40 years to come. This vote is a pity. It's a shame. It's better that we are together. I think that Brexit brings no added value whatsoever. This is a negative negotiation. It is a lose-lose game where nobody stands to win, and its result is important beyond our future relationship with the UK. It is important for the future of Europe as a whole. We are trying to reach an agreement that is as fair and precise as possible for the withdrawal, and that is ambitious as it can be for the future, by defending the interests of citizens, our priority, our European companies, and by preserving the foundations of the European project. As far as I'm concerned, I shall continue to lead these negotiations up to the end in the name of the European Union, in the respect of the principles that I've just listed, and also my mandate that I've been given. And I shall do so, ladies and gentlemen, President, with the same serenity, without any spirit of revenge, without any aggression, with a lot of respect for a major country that will remain our ally and partner in all likelihood. Thank you for your attention.